Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Okay, so let's get started, inshallah. Let me just. Okay, so I think we reached up to, we finished this second branch, which was in the belief in the messengers, correct? We've hit the third branch now, which is the belief in the angels. So we will start that, bi'idhnillah. Okay, so just out of curiosity, who has the PDF and who doesn't have the PDF? No one has the PDF, yeah? Okay, fine. We'll start anyway. What it would be, I mean, there is, if anyone has a Kindle or anything like that, then you can potentially get it, or there's Google Books. But I think the publisher has run out of copies. But inshallah, hopefully it'll come at some point. Okay, so the third one is from the branches of faith is belief in the angels. So what he said here, Imam Qazwini is the one who is doing the commentary. He said, based on the Quranic verses and hadith mentioned previously, what he's referring to is the ayah where it said, al-Iman an tu'mina billah wa malaikatihi wa kutubi wa rusuli. That Iman is to believe in Allah and the angels and the books and the messengers. So, of course, the world of the angels is something which is very fascinating. And actually, Imam al-Suyuti, for those who come to the tafsir class, he talks about how these are different worlds, right? The world of the jinn, the world of the angels, the world of animals, all of these are individual worlds. And so the malaika essentially are known as heavenly beings, right? Created from nur, created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in fact, they are an entity which never disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about them that لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون, that they never disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they do what they are told, right? And essentially that is what they are meant to do. Now the hukm of the angels is that we have to believe in it. It is part of belief that one has to believe that the angels are a created being by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they don't disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, anyone who denies the concept of the angels, then of course they deny the revelation of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's very important that we kind of understand. Now, the reality is though, they have many different roles. So the different angels have different roles, and there's many. So I don't know how many have watched the series of Suleiman about angels. I'm sure many have seen them, yeah? So the actual roles of the angels, what are some of the main angels that we know of? There's Jibreel alayhi salam. Who else? Mikael. Anyone else? Israfil. Israel. Okay, good. So there are some primary angels, Jibreel alayhi salam, who comes with revelation. And he is like the head angel, okay? You have Mikael. What does Mikael alayhi salam do? What's his role? Sorry? So he brings the rain. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses angels to do particular roles, right? So he does the rain. Israfil is the one who has his lips to the trumpet. His role is purely what? To announce Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? And so there's a list and lists and lists of what the angels are to do. So you have the angel of death, which takes the souls, the angel of the mountains. The one who came to the Prophet ﷺ at the time of Ta'if, okay? You have, for example, those who drive the clouds. You have those who are sent to the womb. You have angels sent to protect yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, لَهُ مُعَقَّبَاتٌ مِّن بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ وَمِن خَلْفِهِ يَحْفَظُونَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ. That an individual, he has mu'aqqabat, successive angels who come and they protect the individual. They come, some of them they came at night and in day, so they come at the night and then when day comes they switch. Or at the time of Asr and the time of Fajr. But you have angels with you. How many angels, does anyone know how many angels we have? 6, mashallah, potentially. But 4 is the primary. You have one in front, one behind, one on the right, one on the left. Okay? So of course you have the 2 which are recording, But they say the ones in front and the ones behind, they're the ones referring to in the verse, all right? They are the ones which are protectors. Now, how do we understand this? We say that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills that there is a particular calamity or something to happen to you, the angels will just be removed and then the actual decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will occur. But they protect you from different elements, right? You have angels who question in the grave, angels who hold the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the throne of Allah. You have an angel which is different from your qareen, which is the jinn which is with you. You have angels which descend and they search for halaqat al-dhikr, for the angels that look for the times of remembrance and the seeking of knowledge, right? There's the angels which go make tawaf around Baytul Izzah. Baytul Izzah is in the heavenly realm, and it said that every day 70,000, sorry, this is Baytul Ma'mur, sorry. Every day 70,000 angels come and they circulate around the Baytul Ma'mur and then they never return. This is a hadith of Tirmidhi. There is another hadith which mentions that there is not a space of 4 fingers except that there is an angel prostrating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the concept of the angel and the world of the angels is amazing. Really, there's so much you can look into, there's so much to say, but part of our belief is that we believe in them. Are there any questions before we move on? Yeah, so there is, some have said that they like you said, they're listening out for the recitation of the Qur'an. Whether they don't recite Qur'an or not, wallahu alam, I don't know. However, they do seek out the recitation of the Qur'an in that way. Yeah? Any other question, inshallah? That's a good question. So the hadith doesn't mention that specifically, for wallahu alam, but what is clear that the other hadith I mentioned about that there's not a fingers or 4 fingers worth, except that there's an angel prostrating. This is throughout the universe. So of course, this is the ghaib. We can't see it, right? But the reality is that it's unlimited, and of course the number of wings that they have, and it's a whole world in and of itself. And of course, to be honest with you, the jinn world is also an interesting world. Of course, we have less about that. We have a lot more narrations about the world of the angels than we do about the world of the jinn, right? However, it is something which is definitely to worth think about. Okay, so he mentioned this anyway. Now, there isn't else much to say apart from the fact that it's worth, of course, I don't know if it's in English, but Sheikh Kishk has a nice book on the concept of angels. So it's a very nice book to look into. But it's also good for your own iman to be able to read about and understand the concept of the angels. Okay, so the next one, the 4th branch, he says, the 4th from the branches of faith is belief in the Qur'an and all the books revealed before it. So he says, based on the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, billahi wa rasulihi wal kitab alladhi nazzala ala rasulihi wal kitab alladhi anzala min qabl. So he says, O you who believe in Allah and His Messenger, and in the book He sent down to His Messenger, as well as what He sent down before, and also due to the Quranic verses and the hadith mentioned previously. So what we said, Imam Qazwini here is basically giving you a very brief of the book of Shu'ab al-Iman from Imam Bayhaqi, right? So he's taken literally, because it's 14 volumes, I think it's 10 or 14 volumes we said, the original book. He's literally taken and he's put it into like a small book like this, and this is got commentary, so it's probably less than this. So the first thing to note is that he starts off and he says that al-Iman bil-Qur'an. And he says, starting with the Qur'an, that this is of course the belief that the Qur'an is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reality is, brothers and sisters, is that, I mean, as I'm getting older, and I think as people get older, you kind of tend to realize that maybe how much you hadn't given to the Qur'an. I was saying that in the dars that Ibn Taymiyyah, he mentioned that, he says, Nadimtu ala tadi'i awqati fi ghayri ma'ani al-Qur'an, that I regretted the time that I spent in other than reflecting on the meanings of the Qur'an. And subhanAllah, part of it is, you know, when you grow up, when I used to grow up, there was this thing that the Quran, and still now, you put it on a shelf, right? You need to venerate the Quran, right? And so you put it on the shelf and it'll be wrapped up, and you might read it maybe once every few months when someone's passed away. But the veneration of the Quran is not the way you necessarily treat it as a physical entity, it's how much you recite it and you give to it, right? And I think that one of the things that we, especially when we were younger, and I think it's changing now, is how people have understood that really felicity and taqarrub to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and closeness to Him comes through the Quran. And that's why the scholars say, they say that if you want to know your relationship with Allah, what Allah Azza wa Jal thinks of you, then look at your relationship with the Quran. If you find it's difficult for you, if you find that you have something that you don't feel like reading it, or you feel that it's difficult, or you're forcing yourself, then that's a small indication that something has to change in your life. Whether it's that you need to go back and make more tawbah to Allah, maybe you need to come to learn knowledge, maybe you need to clean your heart a bit more. There's something there, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you His message and the link to your message when He wants you to have it. And if you don't have it, there's something there. That's what our scholars used to say. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you, if you don't have it, it's not necessarily all doom and gloom. Sometimes it's just a wake-up call. You need to say to yourself, I'm going to sit, I'm going to try, I'm going to take 20 minutes. I'm going to have a word, I'm going to have a certain amount, I'm just going to read. I might find it difficult at the beginning, but I'm going to do it. If you do it again and again and again, like with dhikr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the heart. Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah, he mentions that he was asked about, to the effect that about someone who they do dhikr but they're not concentrating. So when you're sat in the car and you say astaghfirullah, 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 and you're thinking about other things, right? The question is, should you do the istighfar, or should you stop and do it when your mind is focusing? What do you think? You're remembering Allah, so what do you think? Should you focus and say to yourself, I'm going to do dhikr when I focus? Or it doesn't matter, you're just doing it at all times and you just say it regardless if you're thinking about it or not? What does anyone think? Mind and heart must engage. So you're with the thing you should focus on, huh? Okay, anyone else? I like silences, by the way. Yeah, I can handle silences. So just instead of choosing somebody, go on. Should do it regardless. So he was saying, and his philosophy and the concept is that you just do it regardless, right? You keep doing it. Why? Because you just keep doing it. You do the action. You might feel for the first 50, 60, 70 istighfars or subhanallahs, nothing's really happening. But there comes a point, if anyone tries this, you just keep doing it, there comes a point where, like that, all of a sudden your heart just calibrates. And you think, subhanallah, I'm doing I'm glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I should do it more. And you start to get into it. It's like a motor. You have to warm it up a bit, right? It doesn't come from the beginning. Like, you might say, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. You do about 7 to 10, 20, then you zone out, you're thinking about something else, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. You get to 40, 50, and it's just basically continuing. It's the same with the Quran. If you find that you don't have that, then try to just read. Make yourself read. There's a hadith that says, Man tasabbara sabbarahullah, that whoever strives to have sabr, Allah will grant him sabr. If you strive to have love for the Quran, Allah eventually will give you love for the Quran. Yeah, so this is very important. So anyway, very briefly, so we talk about the Quran. How was it revealed? In summary, we know that it was revealed in Laylatul Qadr, which is the night of power, right, in Ramadan. They said it came to the first heavens in a place called Baytul Izzah. This is Ibn Abbas has mentioned this, where in one go it came on Laylatul Qadr onto Baytul Izzah, which is in the heavenly realm. And from there, over 23 years, it was sent down to the Prophet ﷺ, who would engage with the community and recite to them. And that's why the scholars say is that if you have a connection with the Quran, you become the greatest of people. Why? Because everything that the Quran was connected with is sublime. It's the best of the best. So you know that, for example, it was descended from Lawh al-Mahfuz, which is written, the preserved tablet. The Quran is written there. When it came down via who? Jibreel alayhi salam, who is the best of angels. It came down on the night of in Ramadan, which is the best month, on the night of power, which is better than 1,000 months. And it came down upon the heart of the Prophet ﷺ, who is the best of creation. If you read the Qur'an or you memorize a portion of the Qur'an, you are connecting yourself to that blessed link. And so my advice for myself, first and foremost, and for yourselves, is that try to go back and say, you know what, I'm going to take a small amount. Literally, if you're not reading much, just include a little bit, half a page, quarter of a page, but do it regularly, and you will find that there's khair in your life, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so what do you think the importance of revelation? So why is it that believing in the books is so important? Before we come to the books, what do you think is the reason for this? We believe in Allah, we believe in the Rasul. What is so important about the concept of revelation? Okay, good. And sisters, anyone? MashaAllah, everyone's quiet over there. Go ahead. Sorry? It's divine, it's a miracle. Good. So has anyone heard of something called a go-rap method? Has anyone heard this term? It's a da'wah term, right? Sorry? Yeah. So Aira, mashallah, Allah give them barakah, mashallah, doing a fantastic job. So many, many years ago, this is decades ago, they came up with this thing called the go-rap method, which was basically a method whereby if you're speaking to a non-Muslim or someone interested in Islam, how do you present your argument or present Islam in a way which is logical for them, right? And it's termed the go-rap method. You should look into it, it's quite interesting. So the G is God, the concept of that there is a God, right? And so you're proving to the individual through logically that there is a God, because something cannot come from nothing, apart from people like Lawrence Krauss and Richard Dawkins think that. Of course, it's logically it's impossible, right? For something to come from nothing, right? So it talks about that and the concept of a creator and the concept of a cause and effect. So you start with that. And then you kind of get the person understanding that that makes sense rationally and logically. And so once they've identified that, then you move to the next point, which is that there's one God. Because now you've moved from the concept of establishing there's a creator, and you're moving to what? That there are different deens and different religions which have multiple gods. Hindus and, Isa alayhi salam is the son of God according to the Christians, etc., etc. And so you establish the oneness of God. But then how do you establish the oneness of God? And what is the logical progression from that? It's the concept of how do we know? And that comes down to revelation. And so revelation is R in the go-rap method, right? And understanding that revelation and prophethood is what essentially allows us to have this knowledge. If we didn't have that, we would have no way of knowing, right? So that's why it's so important. So the scholars mention that, or Imam al-Qazwini mentions, that we believe in all of the books, everything munazzal. Some of the scholars said, based on the hadith, but the hadith is a lot of debate about its authenticity, right? Many of them said it was weak, some said it was fabricated, some said no, it's correct, that there were 104 books revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so, of them, there were 50 were revealed to Sheeth, Prophet Sheeth. He was the second prophet after Adam alayhi salam, okay? So you had Habil and Qabil, of course, Habil was killed, and then they say that Sheeth was the third son of Adam alayhi salam as a replacement for the one that was killed, okay, as a bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was a prophet. They said he was given 50 books. They said there were 30 books given to Idris alayhi salam. There were 10 given to Adam alayhi salam. There were 10 given to Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Suhuf, the scriptures. And then you had the Torah, which was given to Musa, the Torah. Injil, or the Gospels, i.e. the Bible, to Isa alayhi salam. The Zabur, which is the Psalms, given to Dawood alayhi salam. And then the Furqan, which is the Qur'an, given to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now, our belief is meant to be what? That we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed all these books. We have to believe in general that He revealed all the books. We don't know some of them, because of course this hadith isn't very authentic, but it's understood that's what it is. But the books mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to believe, okay? And of course, anything in the Quran, we have to take it that we believe in accordingly. And the final point about this is that he said that there is a narration which is authentic that all of the books were revealed in Ramadan. So Ramadan is around the corner, barakah, month of barakah. So inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes us attain Ramadan and benefit in it, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, any question before we continue? It's okay? Okay. So we move on now to the fifth. So he says, go ahead, Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just a quick reminder, anyone who's not, there's a group for this, a WhatsApp group for this, just in case there's any announcements. So if you could just join it, if you're able to. So just in case we do anything in terms of moving timings or cancellations, etc. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So he says the fifth from the branches of faith is to believe that all fate, good and bad, is from Allah. So he says, based on the speech of Allah, قُلْ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ, say to them, both come from Allah. Then he says, also due to the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu in the two authentic collections, he says, I'll say it in the English, Adam and Musa alayhim salam disputed. So Musa alayhi salam said to Adam, O Adam, you are our father and you disappointed us and took us out of the garden. Adam alayhi salam responded to him and said, O Musa, Allah has selected you to speak with him, and he outlined the Torah for you with his hand. Do you blame me for a matter that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had destined upon me 40 years before he created me? Thus Adam alayhi salam defeated Musa alayhi salam in the debate. He then says, Imam Abu Bakr al-Bayhaqi recited some couplets to us with the aforementioned chain. He said, Abu al-Fawaris al-Abu Junayd ibn Ahmad al-Tabari recited these couplets to me. He said, Abdu dhu dakhrin wa rabbu dhu qadrin wa dahru dhu duwalin wa rizqu maqsoom wal khayru ijma'a fi makhtar khaliqana wa fi ikhtiyari sawahu al-lawm wa shawm. So he says, Allah's slave is dissatisfied, but the Lord is the one who predestines. Time changes it all, and one's provision are divinely distributed. All goodness is that in which our Creator is chosen, and in any other's choice lies blame and misfortune. So this particular section is the concept of qadr, right? Qadr essentially is predestination, or the concept of divine decree, right? Essentially meaning what? That everything happens by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it has been preordained, right? So meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from before the creation of ourselves, He had ordained that we will live lives, all of us will come to Cheadle Mosque today, for example, right? That this person will marry this individual, this will happen to this particular people. All of that has been preordained by His will, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we know, for example, that whatever, as per the hadith, whatever hit you was never going to miss, and whatever missed you was never going to hit. For example, for whatever reason, something had happened to your car, it broke down, right? Or it completely got bust. You can't stop that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed, that's part of the decree, right? If you win something, you get a tax credit from HMRC, £560. Everyone likes those particular envelopes, yeah? I remember back in the day, I don't get them anymore for some reason. But the point being is that when you get that, that's from the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's been written for you. Now the thing is though, is that of course the concept of predestination, free will is always talked about. People get confused because they say, well, if everything has been written for us, then technically we are forced to do what we are meant to do, right? However, the easiest way to think about it, and our scholars say we shouldn't talk about it too much because people, they go into overdrive about how this works. The basic premise is what? Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed everything, He has the knowledge of everything, but we have free will. We don't know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preordained, but we have free will. I have the free will to make a phone call right now during this class, or not to make a phone call and speak to you. There's nothing to stop me. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what I'm going to do, and He is aware of everything. And so that is the basic premise of the concept of qadr, right? Now, people then ask, and we've talked about it, especially those who come to our classes, that, well, and this is what atheists say. They will say that, well, if everything has been preordained, then when we have things like good and evil, is this been preordained? For example, a earthquake in a Muslim country, or a baby who dies. A baby is innocent, right? So how do you explain that with the concept of qadr? Do we say that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed this, or we say He hasn't decreed it? What do people think? He has. So how do you explain it? Good. So the way that the scholars explain this concept is the concept of, they call it irada kawniyya wa irada shar'iyya, right? Which essentially is universal will and legislative or shar'i will, right? Meaning what? That if, for example, a baby dies or a earthquake happens in a Muslim country and many Muslims die, we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed this. This is part of His will. But it is not something that He necessarily loves. He doesn't love it, but He has willed it for a hikmah and for a reason He knows. Okay? Whereas the other type of will, irada shar'iyya, is when, for example, you get up in the morning and you pray 2 rak'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed that you will pray 2 rak'ah. And it is something that He loves, but He has willed it for a reason that He knows. Now, why is this important? Because those who are non-Muslim and others, they argue and they say that when bad things happen or evil happens in the world, then this is the shaitan. And they don't attribute anything to God. They say, no, this is just the shaitan. But let me ask you a question. If they say that this is the shaitan and it has nothing to do with Allah, what's the problem here from an aqeedah belief perspective? Say again? Okay, good. Anyone else? What's the problem to say that no, evil comes from the shaitan in the sense that Allah is not involved in that and it's just this is happening by the shaitan? Yeah. Yeah. Correct. So the thing is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of everything. Everything that happens in this world. When the fire burns by His will. When someone wins the lottery, they've won by His will. Of course, He doesn't love that, of course, gambling, right? But everything, وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا, that a leaf does not fall except by His knowledge. The creation of the heavens and the universe and the people from the beginning of time to end of time, all of that is by His knowledge and He's decreed that. And so the concept of irada kawniyya wa shar'iyya, which is universal will and shar'i will, means that every single thing which happens on an atomic level in this universe happens by the will of Allah. It either falls under universal will for a hikmah which He knows, or it is something that He does it legislatively which He loves. But even the shaitan and anything that happens only when you have magic, magic doesn't happen independent of Allah. We can't say that someone is jadoo, has had jadoo on him, right? And this is happening without Allah. Then you're taking the qudra and the power away from Allah. Do you get my point? This is very important. So you as a believer are firmly believing, and that's why in Surah Al-Baqarah, when they says, وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِينَ إِلَّا بِأَحَدٍ, the ayah is that they are not affected except by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Meaning that someone could do black magic, it can have an effect. But that effect doesn't happen except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge. It doesn't happen independent. So this is very important. And that's with our life generally. Is there any question on that before? Oh, yeah, so very finally then, so coming to the hadith. Hadith is very interesting, as you've probably seen. And this is a famous hadith. It's actually in the authentic collections. And in summary, it's basically Musa alayhi salam, as per the hadith, arguing with Adam to say that, why did you get kicked out of paradise? And they say the logic or the wisdom why it was because Musa alayhi salam was having such a hard time with Bani Israel, trying to get them to worship Allah, and they were going to the cow and then they wouldn't listen to him, and they were sent to the desert, and he was trying to get them to obey Allah, and he was getting tired. And he said, well, yeah, Adam, why did you do that? And so what we find here is that Adam alayhi salam, he says that in one of the narrations, he said to Musa alayhi salam that how long before I was created, Adam is saying this, How long before I was created did you find that Allah had actually written the decree, written the Torah? And so Musa alayhi salam said 40 years. So Adam alayhi salam said, do you then blame me for a deed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed before me 40 years ago? Meaning what? That Adam alayhi salam is defending himself, saying that Allah had decreed that I was going to sin, right? So are you going to blame me? Now this brings up a lot of questions. And the fact that I'm bringing it up 3 minutes before I need to finish is probably not a good idea. But this particular hadith brings a lot of questions, right? It's easily explainable, but I'm actually surprised it's in here, and I think it's here for a wisdom, because it's the kind of foremost way. Because people will say that this is an invitation to say that, okay, well, we sin, and we blame our decree that it's been decreed for us, right? That's incorrect. All that Adam alayhi salam is doing is just explaining the fact that it was decreed, but we say that that Adam had the choice, right? They ate from the tree, they made that choice. We have a choice to do something good and something haram. We have that choice. Yes, in the long run, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has been a decreed there, but we have free will at this time. And so the hadith is just mentioning, he's just explaining why it happened, and I can't do much about it. But in our current time, we can't use that as an excuse. Logically, you can't say that. We have complete free will to do what we want to do. I can have orange juice and I can have alcohol. I can do that if I want to. No one's going to stop me, right? But I am the one that has the free will, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes it easy for us and makes us of those people who are upon His ta'ah. Are there any questions before we finish, so I can allow for the next class to start after Isha? Any question? Don't ask me about Qadr, yeah? Because everyone asks about Qadr and then it turns into a big debate. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاك الله خير.